I know teachers right now are into their 40s who are still paying college loans off.
The people that aren't in education complain about what we're not doing in education. You're like, all right, so the people that are doing cool stuff, you almost have borderline a moral obligation to say, all right, this is what I'm doing then.
Let me ask you a very quick question. Is it easier to get a passport than it is to substitute teach?
Yep, like be lazy. Well, if I'm training people to be teachers, be lazy. Yeah, shut up and let them do it.
There's two emotions that I straddle, right? Is hope and worry. So I'm worried to death about kids, but I'm super hopeful about the future.
Education wants the instant gratification. They want the weeds. They don't want the trees.
CTE is coming gangbusters for the traditional, practitioners who don't want to even entertain moving things around for the sake of efficacy.
Do we need as much time as we need to do school?
I mean, if you're asking a 14-year-old, they're going to tell you a weekend will be fine. But no, I want to challenge kids.
If you're about to listen to this podcast, buckle up.
You're listening to the Disrupt Education Podcast. Here are your hosts, Peter Hostrawser and Alli Dahl.
Welcome back to the Disrupt Education Podcast. Peter Hostrawser here with Alli Dahl, the Priv now. All right. I love that. Do you have a shirt with that on it or something? Like, does it say the Priv on the back?
No, I mean, it was since my first year teaching, students would shorten my name, call me all sorts of nicknames. I think it's kind of, I never minded it, a Priv, hey Priv,
You're the doll now, the doll.
Yeah.
Right.
The doll, exactly.
So wonderful guest last week with Abby and Lindsay. Man, where do you want to start? I've got so much to unpack. I was taking notes diligently, so if you watch the last episode, I'm like looking down here, I'm like writing all over the place. But yeah, what a great share of story. Basically, ninth grade all the way through college. Two very different universities, located geographically different, a lot of cultural differences, it sounded like, at the two schools, and now where they are. So where do you want to begin?
I think, just sharing a little bit of my perspective as their teacher and seeing them kind of like grow up. It was very surreal, listening to them. They were always, I would say, very well-spoken, eloquent students, hardworking. Abby was in speech and debate. And it's interesting hearing Lindsay being like, I wanted to be a lawyer and argue and everything. But then she also says, like, all I did was school. I was really good at school. I didn't feel like I had talents. And it's like Lindsay had many talents. And one of those was just like connecting with people and being there in real time, and Abby too, but it's just for Lindsay to be an engineer now is like, I wouldn't as her teacher have thought that was how she was going to go. And I love that how her path has kind of evolved, and I can see all of her gifts and talents working really well in, the engineering space that she's in. And then Abby, always a free spirit, and seeing her kind of continue that. And she comes from, right, this background of teachers and doctors and engineers and lawyers, and for her to feel like she didn't know any other path, and it's not like she's like pushing against it, but she's just questioning, like, this isn't for me. Luckily has really strong support systems, that they'll talk to her and coach her, and she has the resources to do so. But it's like it's fascinating to see how their paths have, it's not even like diverged, but just it's cool to see, as I'm sure it is for you when you have previous students on, just getting to see their growth. Because I'm like, whoa, you guys, you were well spoken in high school. You've lost some of that teenage angst, and now you've got a little more maturity, some more wisdom behind your words, and that was really cool for me to see.
Yeah, and it's I think it's interesting because in education, especially like when you're looking through a K through 12 system, and even a little post-secondary. We get so into the now. And I think it's very important for people to step back and just to watch the progression, right? We
Mhm.
see our students a lot when you're in a system, you can see them every single day or every other day, and it's a grind. However, I think that's one thing that a lot of institutions are missing outside of just the data collection, which Abby really made a very good point on. That is 90% of XYZ graduate and get a job and blah blah blah. And she even felt as a consumer of that education that that is the reason why they were doing it, and it had nothing to do with the customer. A lot of image, and I've got a lot of different things there. But going back to really seeing where the youth go, and if you know who they are, you kind of called it a little bit, but there's also some turns and twists in their journey. um but I think it's very interesting and much needed in this day and age to really, I mean, we're educators, we're teachers, and our clients, we've got to see where they go, and if we're not helping in that foundation of guiding them, we've got some work to do, and there's some opportunities there. And I think that's what I love about this series, and these two young ladies brought it. I mean, wow, like the push into the pull, what you're going to do in college. A lot of career talk here. There's a lot of where does the professional world intertwine with the academic world, and do we need more of that? The experiences, I had no idea. Even like Lindsay, who's in the engineering world, like I didn't know these things existed. um, my question then becomes, well, how do we help people understand that these things exist, and when do we do it? So that was just a huge takeaway for me. I've got some pretty harsh thoughts about college as well on this, certain universities and such. But yeah, starting there, like, what was your thought as they went and progressed through their
I
entire, yeah.
I thought it was really interesting that they, Abby just came out and said it like, going to college to find yourself is a pretty expensive way to do it. And you've said before, and from what Gary Vee says, if you want to go find yourself, if you want your young people to go find themselves, go put them in a Four Seasons hotel for a year, and you'll still be less money than
Yeah,
a 4-year degree,
right.
And, you know, they both have the perspective of appreciating college for what it was from two very different places, right? Lindsay, her parents didn't go to college, and so she always felt that was her path. And then
Hmm.
Abby, her parents were doctors, and so always felt it was her path. But right, there's plenty of students but between those, I would say, extremes,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
That are questioning college, and I think rightfully so. And you know, for Lindsay, right, ultimately getting her degree and going into engineering, great. I think the problem solving and whatnot, having some kind of streamlined system, even if it's not a degree, so to speak, is useful if your job is going to be solving problems in a niche field. But
Hmm.
even to Lindsay's experience, she feels wildly unprepared for her job. She's 2 weeks in and is like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And like you and I know, that's normal. I've started
Yeah.
many jobs and felt like I don't know what I'm doing, and like you figure it out. But like I love that she said that she's not alone, and but that college didn't prepare her for that.
Hmm.
Right? That's the gap, right? Like so
Yep.
colleges, right? If you're listening to this, right? Like what can you change? What is the opportunity for you to feel like your students, your consumers are prepared?
Hmm.
And high school, same thing, right? How can we prepare our students for the real world? And I think the only way to do that is to get rid of the walls of like being in the walls and just take college and or whatever it needs to be into the quote unquote real world. Like it doesn't
Mhm.
need to be this ivory tower, isolated, and to Abby's like experience with the research, and she's not wrong in that research is super isolating. When
Yeah.
I was working at Bard College, a lot of the other professors that they brought in for the class were postdocs, people finishing their PhD or just recently finished their PhD. And almost all of them that I worked with were like, I had to stay with my PhD topic, not because I necessarily liked it, because it was too late to switch. And it was so niche that there was only that route for me to get my PhD, or there's only this route to finish
Mhm.
my PhD. And then you're almost locked into that area for, I don't know, 5, 10 years minimum, because that's what you did. And when Abby was like, 6 more years cutting and doing microscopes and being in a wet lab and being in a basement didn't sound like that. That self-awareness piece to be like,
Mhm.
that I don't want to do that. There's got to be another way for me to maneuver and pivot is super interesting to
Mhm.
me, that the young people are pushing back against these dinosaur routes, in my opinion.
Mhm.
Do you need to do 6 years niche research to get pigeonholed into one area? I don't know. Do you need to do 4 years to go and do the work that Lindsay's doing in environmental engineering? I don't know. But currently, the world says that degree allows you to do that.
Right.
I just question, after hearing what their experience was, is there another way to get them those experiences without a degree?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot of opportunity there.
True, true, and I think there's a trust issue. I think there's a ginormous trust issue here. So there's a couple of different areas that I wanted to kind of unpack that they really told in their stories. And again, like Alli and I have these conversations after we have these interviews and talking to people. So if you're at this point, and you're like, all right, well, who's these people? Just go back and listen 1 week before just kind of give you that update. But there's the trust issue. Number one is, and Abby said it was great. I'm glad I heard her say that. And I think a lot of people need to understand that at the end of the day, college is a business, right? There is money coming in and there are clients in there. Hopefully, for the most part, are doing academic work that's going to help them fulfill whatever they want to fulfill in their lives. But let's not, it's the old undercoating on a car, right? Like I'm gonna sell you this 4 year and not really maybe tell you exactly where to go or what to do. So then what did she say? Well, people just stay for their masters or go into a PhD. Well, what happens there? Now, I'm not saying they're legitimately doing this or not doing this. I think it should be questioned that a college is maybe manipulating that because 2, 3, 4, 7 more years is a lot more funding for them, right? And also going back into where you're doing research, that is funded by somebody else paying. So a large amount of that money is going to go to the university, and some of it may trickle into whoever's doing the research. So, and then there's name brand. So, let's just be clear, this is a business. Now, I think one of the things that colleges and universities, I've said this before on the podcast, can do and need to do is not to place a bandage career counselor out there who's uh, only looking at like 1,000 students and trying to pick and choose. It needs to be intertwined into the curriculum, especially at the post-secondary. We're doing it at the secondary level. I think it was Abby who mentioned their business school has their own counselors. Well, when you go into an MBA program, right, the first couple things that you do is, yeah, there's some theory and different things like that, but you apply it when they bring in a company to work projects with the classroom. Why does that have to only be in business? That needs to be in psychology. That needs to be in engineering. That needs to be in IT. That needs to be in animal sciences, whatever, right? And I think that is a way where colleges need to adapt, right? Because they spelled it out for us, right? That way, if we looked at something that, Lindsay's going into her first gig, well, she would have had a little bit more experience of that. Maybe she's not going to know everything. I mean, that's just natural to go into a new thing, but to know some things a little bit further than where she is. Definitely, Abby could have seen maybe and connected with some other industry things outside of just lab rats in psychology or whatever else path they're going to go into. So I really think those two things are very important for colleges and universities to understand, because when your client, and we're not talking low-end clients here, Alli, like these two girls are very intelligent. They're going to two great schools, and I use quotes with that, and they are seeing right through some of the things that where there's opportunity to improve. You gotta think, and Abby said it as well, like I know a lot of peers. I'm not alone. So
Yep.
yeah,
I
that's a
mean,
big thing.
it's a big thing, and I will say so. Having worked in St. Louis, Missouri, and I wrote lots of letters of recommendation to students to go to Missouri S&T, because it is not only is it one of the best public schools in the University of Missouri system,
Hmm.
because it's a University of Missouri, um, one
Hmm.
of their state schools, but it's a very well known engineering specific. I mean, you can get other degrees, but I would guess 80% or more of the students who go there get an engineering degree. It's
Hmm.
extremely weighted that way. And they have built huge industry connections.
Hmm.
And St. Louis and Kansas City are big industry cities. And
Hmm.
so not only do they recruit from there, but then, like as Lindsay pointed out, they go there. They go back, students go back to those areas. Well, okay, great. S&T has figured out how to partner with a lot of these companies because of their location and proximity, and have a pretty well-oiled machine. Because all of the students that I have known who've gone to S&T have graduated and gotten jobs.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
it was actually an exception that they wouldn't. I mean, so they are good at picking the students who go there and who graduate from there. I do also know students who have failed out of there, right? Because they just decide school isn't for me. This is really, really hard and it's a lot of work and I don't want to. But the students who finish tend to get put in an engineering
Right.
uh job right
Yeah.
off the bat. I mean, in all of the different facets of engineering.
Hmm.
But Lindsay still said, I had to go get an internship. You have to have this experiential credit, but like, okay, just because you put that out there for students to like have, do you really have, as Abby said, a tangible experience? And I was honestly surprised to hear both of them had to go and get their own internship slash, like, that wasn't a built-in part of their program, their degree. I
Hmm.
know when I was going to undergraduate, uh, there were field experiences. It wasn't necessarily you didn't, or an internship wasn't required, but a lot of the classes I was working, and I know this was unique to my health science. Shout out to health science, uh, like faculty at Truman State University, because you guys were ahead of your time. And that, I mean, I had to do a dental hygiene campaign for a local community,
Hmm.
and we had to do a radio spot that got played on the radio for like 5 years. This is in rural Missouri, but like their health science, faculty there were very involved in getting us in the field. I mean,
Hmm.
I remember one class we were like once a week we were at some site. That was just normal. But now I'm realizing that that's not a normal experience in most degree programs. And I'm just saying, if you are in the university system or in K through 12, you have such an opportunity to give students tangible experiences by
Hmm.
connecting them to people working in the field, whatever the field is. I mean,
Hmm.
it sounds too simple, Peter.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, then it comes down to the question again. That's why I go back to trust. Are you doing this to generate or not doing this to generate more funds? I mean, are you? I don't know. Like I will throw that question out. It seems like, in my experiences in the conversations that we're having, the legacy schools are still betting on the legacy name on a diploma. I mean, and that may or may not be true. And please like reach out to us and let us know some new different things that are happening. Um, I think that's a big deal. And I also go back to the durable skills, right? Like, where are these coming in? Like, so, um, I can tell you, like Abby getting a career coach was a great move. That's something that where this person is going to help people in general understand how to network better, how to communicate, how to really take ginormous decisions and chop them up into smaller micro decisions to kind of get you to where you're going, to build clarity. It's almost like the system at the post-secondary level wants to give you some sort of clarity, but still keep it unclear enough to where we have to help out. It's the old
Mhm.
consultant versus coach mode. And I'm going to
Mhm.
go back to Jeff and Simon. I mean, that was a harsh statement. And I've actually had consultants in conversations with myself say I have to rethink what I'm doing here because do I really want to like lead people on and continue to, make money or I mean, I don't think like leech really and kind of like, well, here's another problem. And so or do I want to coach people into success and just, hey, thank you very much, right? And that's I think that's a huge miss. I've seen in very big universities going to where, my daughter is visiting and she's figuring these things out. I've seen career centers and it's usually just a desk manned by two or three students, upper level students, maybe an adult. And we're talking that's it for thousands of students. And I think there is I know this generation, and especially speaking with these two young ladies, that they see right through that. They're like, no way. Like Abby was talking about, there are 7 career counselors that are there, and they're not really replacing one. And when one has a medical issue, it becomes very difficult. And you're talking about a very big kind of named ACC East Coast school. So I really think, and I don't know why they're not moving as fast. Some are, some aren't. But I don't understand. I need somebody at the collegiate level to tell me who's like a president or something why we are not doing this at that level. Is it a cost thing? Because students want to know. My daughter even said it at one of the universities we were choosing was, I feel like this looks great and fun. I know enough about myself that would be, but there is this gap, and I don't think anybody's really going to, the world doesn't need all of this, and there's somebody who's not really going to pay me to do this stuff. And, maybe, I don't know. I've got a lot of questions. These ladies have brought up a lot of opportunities to improve, yet I still have some questions. So,
Oh, I've got all the questions in terms of like I the one thing I love about Gen Z is they are not afraid to pull back the curtain. They're
yep.
like, "Who are you, Wizard of Oz?" Like, what is the man behind the machine? And you know, the it's honestly when Abby was like, I don't know that I want to do 6 more years of school. I want to take a
Hmm.
gap. I do like the story that she shared about how like she wanted to take a gap year after high school. And I don't blame anyone during COVID for wanting to like
Yeah.
just did not know what they're doing. I will also say I I like that her parents kind of pushed back and was like, no, like we want you to continue. And we had oh man, we've had more than one guest kind of push back on the idea of taking a gap year
Hmm.
unless you have a plan.
Yes. Yes.
And I think that was TJ Vari,
Yeah.
the most recent time we've had that said. And I do agree with that, because I think just pausing and getting out of a path, like just not doing anything right
Yeah.
now,
Right.
especially with how addictive social media and the
Yeah.
internet is a really bad choice.
hmm
Like,
Stop
because
learning.
yes,
Yeah.
you basically just completely halt anything. And now, am I saying that pushing Abby into college was necessarily like the best option? Could it have been something else? And we asked them, you know, did you feel like you had another choice? And both of them, because of their upbringing and whatnot, college
Mhm.
was their route.
Right.
But I think with Gen Z, a lot of them are like, I could just go and work. I could, get a apprenticeship or a micro, uh, credentialing of
Mhm.
some kind. And those are really, really big. And I think for industry to figure out, right, that talent pipeline, which Jason Van Ness talks about, like if you are a business thinking, how can I recruit good talent? The door is wide open, because
Mhm.
Gen Z is looking for options. I mean, Abby said, my friends are applying for 50 plus jobs. I've heard hundreds, hundreds of applications, and
Mhm.
just to get something. But yet there are so many industries that are desperate for people to work there. So there is a misalignment.
Mhm.
That's what I hear. It's
Mhm.
like there are places that need workers, and then for whatever reason, universities aren't connected to them. And so if you're an industry and you want to kind of skip the middle ground and create your own credentialing system and get them from high school, or really early days as a young person, reach out to your local school,
Yeah.
build a relationship, I just think that. And if you're in the school, like, what industries do you have locally to you? And Christy Valesky does this type of work, and she's building something really great right now that is trying to do that type of work in communities. And so
Mhm.
it's like that there are opportunities to build those types of networks and local programming. But all I'm hearing, the more and more we talk to young people, is that they want to be exposed to different careers, and they want to know, like, what can I do? And then they just want a straight path there. Like,
Yeah.
take out the fluff, remove the fluff. It's
Mhm.
not helping. I know it's not helping.
Yeah.
You know it's not helping. And give me more tangible, streamlined direction. So I just think that is potentially a huge
Yeah.
like shift we're gonna see, is like industry being like, hey, come to our, maybe not YouTube university, but come to our engineering university, and then, like, we will employ you. And it's only a year and a half, by the way.
Mhm. Yeah.
Or come to our, psychology, like, you want to be a school psychologist? What if the education system just blew up its own system and was like, you want to be a school psychologist? You, after you graduate high school, we have a programming thing to get you back in working in the school in 3 years. And it's
Mhm.
like all inclusive. I don't
Yeah.
know. Like, why not?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I think one of the things you brought up, Chrissy, and we just had a conversation actually this morning. I was talking to some other people, and actually, Chrissy and I will be working in August, pretty close to when this is coming out, in up in Wisconsin with Scott Carr and his crew at CISA2. But I think one of the things that we always show is her work-based learning video. And I think students like Lindsay and Abby, like going through this, and when they can start to have that self-actualization and self-confidence and a little bit more clarity within who they are, and then how do you go into a work-based learning rather than just work? Like, how do you start to take a look at, and it all comes back to those durable skills. How do you start taking a look at yourself and what's going on in communication? What's going on? And Lindsay said a little bit like in teamwork when she was talking about those design teams and things like that. That type of clarity, you may go into something where you're having an experience, and that internship does provide that something where you can test it out for 60, 100 hours. And if you don't like it, that's great, that's fine. But you go through that, And like it or not, you can learn from your skill sets and the skill sets that are happening within that organization that are transferable across the board. And that is what Christy always talks about with work-based learning. And how do we, again, embed that professional learning into academics? And man, this was just such an eye-opening episode. I highly suggest you go back, and if you're in education and building programs and leadership in college at this post-secondary level, listen to what these two young ladies have said and don't get mad because all they're giving us is opportunities to improve. And I think that is something that, reach out to Alli and I. We can do these things. We have plans. We've helped people plan. Um, it's one of the things that we always hear. I hear it constantly, Alli, from professionals in certain areas like manufacturing and IT, and they're like, where are this the youth, my talent pipeline that is really engaged and really diving in and understands a little bit more of the onboarding process. It's going to save me a couple $1,000 and some time to where they can fit right into our culture and start moving and learning quickly. We do that, right? So I think there's so much opportunity. I love these two guests, and thank you for like being the priv for them.
They were fun. They were on, like, you know, we say this, but students don't always feel that way. But like those types of students are gifts, like
Hmm.
they are uh truly why educators do what they do. And I always sometimes I always kick myself because I'm like, if I knew what I knew now back then, how could I have like helped them better? But I do like that Lindsay did say in one of her answers about like, you know, teenagers really can't be helped, like
Yeah.
they don't know what they don't know. And it's so true. And it's okay to not know. It's okay to not have a plan and to be figuring it out and to try stuff.
Hmm.
We advocate for that all the time. But it's one thing for us with perspective to say that. It's another thing to be a teenager and not feel like that message resonates with you because you're like, well, of course I have to figure it out and I have to know now. And
Hmm.
that very intense, like I have to figure things out in the teenage years, it it's like too much at this point, and
Hmm.
it's a great opportunity for those of us in education to be more relaxed about teenagers not knowing and just encouraging a next step,
Yeah.
whatever that next step is. Obviously, not just like encouraging apathy or just sitting on the couch and TikToking or
Hmm.
whatever. But in whatever the next step is, just encouraging that and not like, what are you doing with the rest of your life?
Right.
Because that's ridiculous.
Right. I think one of the kind of last thing that they said, and we'll kind of wrap up here, is when I really wanted to ask them, like, why are you guys hanging out with Alli in her classroom? And I kind of knew the answer, but I think it's very important for people to understand what you just said there was, they are teens, they're figuring things out. There's a lot of weight on them. The only way that we can really help people in general, not just teens, but anybody, is to empathize, to understand who they are. Maybe, make some suggestions, but listen for the opportunities that they're seeking out. And I think too much as especially secondary educators, we start to think of these teens as adults, and they're not there yet. I keep thinking like I did not jump into my own profession and that I am now until like I was 29. So I always go back and take a look at myself. And in high school, if you were asking me what I wanted to be, I remember I was on a part of a study, and I can't remember what. I think it was Indiana University, and I remember they come in every month or so and ask me the same questions. Where you headed now? Honestly, Alli, I don't remember what the hell I said. I have no idea, and it was repetitive. Like it was a good 3 or 4 year study, and I have no idea what I was saying. I cannot remember a darn thing. So that to me, like, it's more about they didn't know who I was. They didn't know my interests or what I was good at or who I was hanging out with or what clubs or sports or what classes I was taking. They were just like, what are you gonna do? And that to me really started to say, all right, we need more teachers and educators and mentors and coaches like yourself to where we have these conversations with students and we just meet them where they are and understand that they're growing. And, to hit Abby, she wanted to talk about it, but she didn't. But no frontal lobe yet. The frontal lobe is still, you're going to make some crazy decisions and do some things that, you don't know what you don't know yet. So that would be my biggest takeaway for educators right now. But also, we've talked a lot of opportunities for what education systems can do. We still got a lot of questions, though. I got a lot of business questions. So
Lots of questions.
yeah,
I feel
but
like
we
business-
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I just feel like business colleges and business schools, like you have your own opportunity to work within your own system to help other programs level up
Yep.
the business model. Just
Mhm.
saying, if you wanted to start in your own
Yeah.
locale, you've got people literally there that could work on it.
Yeah. I'm excited. Our next guest is somebody we've had on before. And he is going to unpack the mindset that may help some youth start to see things a little bit differently. This is going to be a great conversation. I can guarantee you that. It's an amazing conversation where now we can just start to take a look at the ups and downs and how to navigate that. And I know this person very well, and he's done that. So I'm very excited. But we'll wrap this one up. For Alli Dahl, I'm Peter Hostrawser. Thank you all for hanging out with us on the Disrupt Education podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, share it out, listen. We're here to help people become the best who they are through systems, outside the system, rebuilding systems, disrupting the system. So thank you so much to our Disrupt Education listeners. We'll catch you next time. That's a wrap on this episode of the Disrupt Education podcast. Let's keep the momentum going. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share this episode out.
If you want to dive deeper into disrupting education, visit our website at disrupteducationpodcast.com.
Here's the bottom line. We believe real change in education starts locally. It happens when communities come together to rethink learning. If you're an educator, school leader, or organization looking to take action towards real change in education, we are here to help. Reach out and connect.
And we'd love to hear your thoughts on today's episode. So drop us a line wherever you listen. And until next time, take that bold step beyond your comfort zone. Challenge the status quo and be the change education truly needs.
Because at the end of the day, education isn't just about subjects. It's about students. And when we dare to disrupt, the future of learning is waiting.